Hey, good evening, class. This is Professor York. I am getting with you so you have your video on the marketing funnel and the purchase driver scorecard. This will help you for Wednesday's class because what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you an in-class assignment where you're going to actually create your own purchase driver scorecard, which I think will be very helpful to work through the components of the marketing funnel, but also think about how you can create tools that can be very useful to your clients, but also if you work in marketing that you can be able to. So before I go into the presentation, one of the things I'll put as a hook to you is that I have a client already who has approached me about having an MBA student who can be able to do funnel metrics. This area is a hot area with a lot of startups. So the better you understand funnel metrics and the funnel and be able to capture data from like Google or other web functions, the better you're going to be able to position yourself in terms of being really a strategic consultant. So, before we get into the specific tool, what I want to do is just walk through a few things to give you some perspective. And really, when you think about the marketing funnel, you have to go back to the customer. And we've talked about who is the customer, but what's the customer behavior? So this is called the customer journey that we have in this slide. And for those who like simpler slides, we think that this is a very useful slide because it lays out two key things. One is the journey, and in terms of some of the drivers of stimulus that help facilitate certain points in that journey. So let's think about you're over at Farmer's Market. And that farmer's market is over in Templeton. Okay. And they have a great farmer's market, by the way, over on Saturdays. And you're out there looking at various fruits, vegetables, meats, and you've got that stimuli. Okay. And it's like, mid-morning, hey, I'm hungry. All right. So I'm starting to think about what I'm going to do for lunch. And so what do we do? Now, we're fortunate these days we have a little thing called the phone, the smartphone, that we can start searching locally. Okay, we're looking for information. Okay, what's local that, we could have lunch. It'd be a good place to go for lunch. Okay, and I come up with 4 or 5 choices that are there in Templeton or in the adjoining area. And we gather data. They could be a variety of things. And so you're at that, what we call decision process place. And that decision process place is going to be, all right, well, I've got some data, okay? And the data tells me about what type of food, do I just want to take some food here from the farmer's market and go cook? Well, or do I go out? What's available? And you have a few choices. There's a great little place called Kitchenette. There's an Italian restaurant that's right across the way. There's a Mexican place that's right nearby. On the 76 station, there's a great little deli. So you're trying to figure out what you want based on what's available, what your preferences are, what the menu puts forth in terms of prices. And that's part of your investigation, which helps with evaluating a variety of alternatives and then ultimately by learning, making a decision. And think about it, based on what we do, and we do this in our day-to-day life, is, okay, now we have a choice to make it. And we decide, hey, I like what I see in terms of Kitchenette. So I think I'm going to go to Kitchenette. Realize, okay, I may need a card, so I go get an Uber. take me half a mile or whatever, a mile to Kitchenette. And you have a great meal over at Kitchenette. And post-purchase behavior, you go, I like Kitchenette so much that I'm going to make note in my Twitter, tell my friends, maybe I fill out TripAdvisor, and so you're creating what we call a viral loop. So this is your journey as a consumer, okay? But we can track that journey in a different way. How many of you have heard of what we call the funnel? And this is something here that many folks talk in the entrepreneurship community and the marketing community. And I give you a very simple funnel, and it's actually something that Alec Baldwin over in Glengarry Glen Ross talks about. Okay, and what he did as a sales director, he went to his salespeople and he said, look, AIDA, and I'm being much cleaner than how Alec was in Glengarry Glen Ross. And, the first stage is awareness, okay, which is this external stimuli. Then we come to internal stimuli. We want to have interest, so we're doing that. Okay, I need to do some investigation. Now we're at that point of decision learning process, choice across alternatives. It's where our desire is there. Okay, and sometimes what we see is folks will give trials, they'll give coupons, they'll say, come to my my auto dealership, and we will do a test drive, because you have desire. And ultimately the action is a purchase, which is your purchase decision. And then you consume, and then not only do you consume it and buy the product, but you take it one step further in terms of post-purchase behavior. I expand this funnel into looking at things a little broader, and I'm going to give you a different perspective so we can segment in terms of types of customers in this funnel relationship. So we talk about target market, which is this universe here. So remember I talked about TAM, SAM, SOM. So this is SOM. And then aware is what we've done through our marketing activities to create awareness. But there are other activities or experiences that the consumer goes through to be able to move them from open to trial, which is they'll try the product, okay, and they'll investigate it, to people who will decide, I've tried it, I haven't rejected it, but I'm not fully in love, and okay, I'll use this once every few months. But you want to move those triers to more recent. You want to create what we call a behavior, which is a hooked behavior. And there's a great book by a gentleman out of Stanford, that talks about this. And ultimately what we're trying to do is move them into regular. I'm a regular user, and it is not necessarily my most often used brand, but it's definitely something that is. And moving them further down it's the most often brand. It's gotten to the point where you've created a habit, and not only a habit, but a relationship. And I use this brand most often, even though I may use other brands, and then ultimately loyalists, which are, I'm totally in love with your brand. I don't even think about any other brands. So it's sort of like, I'm going to say, dating a product in many ways. So just think about this as a funnel. And this is a different way of looking at the funnel, but I do want to take some time at least to think about the different degrees of building a very strong brand relationship. And this is something I talked about today over in class, was branding is about not just, it's not just a story, but it's a relationship that the customer has, because there's both a functional and an emotional connection that's there. So there's a few different funnels. One that we use in the entrepreneurship community is the physical funnel. Okay. Instead of AIDA, we have AIC, which is consideration, which is your decision, and P, which is your decision to buy. There's GET, where we bring people into the relationship who are customers. Then there is, and this will be very helpful when you think about the next case, Cleopatra, keeping. What type of programs? These are tactics, not strategies, to keep. Remember, what's in the funnel is a strategy. Loyalty programs, updates, check-in, surveys are tactics. And then grow, which is the various things that we think about when we have a customer engaged with us in terms of what we may do to expand that relationship. Unbundling, upsell, cross-sell, referrals. And at the end of the day, what we're trying to do is create these viral loops that provide new customers to enter a relationship. We do two things. First of all, earned, okay, which is, say, an interview, a blog, it's free, okay? That's earned because you've done something. It may be a newspaper article that's on your business or your technology or the problem. Then there's paid, which is TV, radio, even print that you pay for, even Google AdWords that are there that help you create awareness that at the end of the day are driving customers into the funnel. Now, another thought to think about when we talk about the funnel is the efficiency of the funnel. And so one of the metrics that we do measure is the funnel efficiency, which is number of potential customers in your SOM or your universe that you want to engage. Okay, that's lower part. So, and what you're looking at is number of folks that buy. So the ratio of number of buy to the universe creates what we call an efficiency ratio, or basically efficiency of your funnel. You're looking, if you start at 100 to 1 converted, ideally you want to look at, can I get it down to 50, 20? And each stage you're looking at conversion factors. Okay, that's something that actually client that I have over in San Diego is looking to have somebody helping out with, to be able to keep track of these things, because there are different drivers that can improve the efficiency of the funnel. Because what we want to do is we invest dollars into attracting, converting, that we get more customers. Okay, and number two, we also look at a second metric, which is what we call gestation period. We do it faster. The other thing we try to think about with the customer is what we call the cost to acquire a customer. So it's all these dollars you're spending here to get the customer in a relationship. And last but not least is the lifetime value of that customer, because once we have that customer, what we're looking at is how do we keep and how we get multiple purchases, and then what other things we can get out of that customer at the end of the day. So lifetime value is very critical, especially when you look at your investments. So that's why relationships keep, because it should not be a one-time purchase. This is the digital version, web mobile, which, as you can see, is acquire and activate. And I just shared this with you so you're aware of this, that in digital there's a little bit different perspective, and this is something that shared with me from Steve Blank and Eric Rice in their publications are there. But it's same concepts in terms of you have earned and we'll say paid media. You have viral loops, and then we have various programs to be able to keep those customers into your web-based program or web-based business, that would be. Another perspective relative to funnels is the interrelationship between marketing and sales. And some will say that the function of marketing is to generate leads for sales. So in many ways, some of the parts of the funnel that marketing plays a role is to build that brand relationship and brand consideration, brand awareness, so that at the end of the day, we're generating leads. So we can hand it off to sales, and the sales will then take the back end and close the deal. And this we see in many different businesses. And if marketing's done this well, and I'll use a case example, say a trade show, and you've done the right things at the trade show. So what happens is that then you're able to hand off the leads to the sales team, and the sales team, this is very critical, has to move quickly, because what happens is over time that interest declines. So within 24 hours, 48 hours, if you follow up on a lead 2 weeks, forget it, it's dead. So that's, if you've ever noticed in terms of something that's digital, you filled out, within a day you might get a call or an email from an account executive or a representative, because what they're trying to do is, while you're hot as a customer, you're trying to close that deal and build that relationship. So I'm going to segue to a concept called, or a tool we use called the Purchase Driver Scorecard. And this tool basically takes the funnel to more of a metric level. And what we try to do is, you can see there's awareness, familiarity, and consideration, parts of AIDA, okay? And here you got purchase. And what we look to do is put some metrics relative to percentages, total markets, and revenue. So the number of customers and actual dollars that are there. So think of it as a scorecard. But it's a really great tool. So I'm going to walk through a few things, and then what I'm going to do is close out with just an Excel spreadsheet, which will be your exercise on Wednesday. So some definitions on the Purchase Driver Scorecard. We start with potential, which is your SOM. And then you have the awareness, which is the level of awareness of the product and service among that target audience. Then going to familiarity is level of knowledge about the product. That means information about attributes and prices of your product solution. Consideration is, now we're moving to a new. You're part of the customer consideration set. That's this product that you have and you're offering, and maybe a few other products. E.g., hey, I'm thinking about a sweet wine, soft red versus honey versus maybe another provider's soft red. Maybe it's some other, I'll say fresh and fruity wine that fits in that category that's there. Okay? The consideration set encompasses an array of products that are competing with you. And they're gathering information, as we talked about in the customer journey, or they may be testing it out. And then finally, the purchase. Okay, buy. And then lastly, what we try to move to is this point of satisfaction. And it's really the degree to which our solutions meet, exceed, or anticipate customer needs, expectations. And if we're doing that right with satisfaction, we should be able to generate loyalty and repurchase. So the satisfaction, if you're highly satisfied with a product, you should see a high percentage of loyalty and repurchasing as well. Here's an example in terms of the Purchase Driver Scorecard, and it's applied to a particular product here called Commercial Air Filter. And a few things that you might want to think about. Okay, so what's interesting about these results? We find as we move through the funnel that there is this decline from the total potential market. Okay, what we also notice is that there's a certain percentage that we see from the previous step. And this is very key as you develop the Purchase Driver Scorecard. You're going to build that into your model. And then what you do see, and I think this is really significant, is you start finding where there are gaps. There's a big gap between awareness and familiarity. So as a marketer, you say, what are the things that I need to do to move that individual from being aware of my product to being familiar? Okay, you may be aware of the brand name, the product, but to be familiar where they know more details. Because now you're creating more intimate relationship. Because familiarity will breed to consideration. You see the fall off is not that bad. And then we see another gap, which is consideration. We're looking at different things to purchase. So then that's a gap. You can say, okay, well, what's going on in terms of closing? What do we need to do with the sales side? What do we need with the trial experience? And then last but not least is moving to satisfaction, which is pretty high, 86% from the previous step. But still, it's not 100%. So there's something that we're lacking relative to our, what I'll say, get, keep, grow. So front end is being get, but here is satisfaction going to repeat and loyalty. Very critical for keeping. So let me go through a little quick case here, and then we'll go through the spreadsheet. So Raj Kumar of Dow, applied the PDSC to pre- and post-purchase research data pertaining to exterior paint products sold by Dow's biggest customer. And as you can see, here's some data. Here's the parts of the PDSC, but here's data, and what you see is sort of this percentage fall off. And what's key is understanding this is percentage of this factor. This is percentage of this factor. Percentage of this factor. It's critical when you build your model. So Raj is seeking to answer two questions. How many customers will purchase and how many will repeat? Can we build a model from here? Well, the answers can be answered vis-a-vis the PDSC. So here's a few screenshots. So this is a simplified version of the purchase driver scorecard where we have the percentage, you have the market potential, and then you have the percentage fall off from each, and then the forecasted number of customers, which give you both your purchasing customers and your repeat purchasing customers, which will give you sort of a basis for driving revenue. All right, and as you can see, we can play with various parameters, such as we've run an advertising campaign. And what we can do is by running that advertising campaign, we can improve awareness. So guess what? We can adjust. Remember that was previously, I think, 55%. Now we have 70% awareness. So all of a sudden, that change of awareness, if you link your purchase driver scorecard, will drive both number of primary purchase customers, but also your repeat customers as well. And then we look at Raj decides the purchase conversion level equals 65 versus 88. Okay, so by understanding that, you look at what happens. See some fall off that's there. Now what's interesting with the purchase driver scorecard is you can link it. So in this exercise we'll have on Wednesday, I've tied in input data that is including both the PDSC parameters, but also parameters you would see in an income statement. And it could be price and variable costs and cost of marketing programs added in. I have a few things I want to put into the case. All right, and with that, when you put those parameters, you look at the cost, you can then what you can do is two things. First of all, is that you see the changes in terms of penetration, purchase driver, but what you start seeing here is we're linking, because we've linked the outcomes from the PDSC to the income statement. And so now you can see your front end, which is going to be your total unit sales and revenues, and basically you can put it to the front end, which is gross profit because it's revenues versus cost of goods sold. Then you can then reduce and eliminate out cost of marketing, sales, SG&A, or administration, and then you can get to your ultimate economic outcome, which could be which is your net profit. And that's really cool, because if you can do that, now you've linked from what you're doing as a marketer in terms of driving changes in terms of those who are coming into the relationship and converting to now economic numbers. And this helps with selling to management in terms of the bottom line impact. And you can take it to the next step. You can look at various scenarios and parameters. And that means in this case what we see is a two-way table. And I don't know if you've been trained on a two-way table, but a two-way table is where you take two parameters that are within the variables you have as input variables that you can change. And then what you do is you link, okay, the economic outcome here, as you can see, 178, 410, to various parameters around awareness and pricing. And by doing that, you can be able to create various scenarios to look at. If I had awareness with the same price and we improved awareness with an advertising campaign, what would be the financial impact? On contrast, if we discount, which is a common pressure that we see from customers and salespeople, we could say, are we having a better impact by discounting on the bottom line? So it allows you to make some very, what I call strategic decisions, but with thought in terms of the bottom line, in terms of the outcome, as well as the top line. And so, as we see in the 2x2, we can look at what Raj has done is he put in a marketing program, 750K, and if we keep all the parameters, all of a sudden we can impact the economic outcome. And this table, if it's linked, will get changed as well. So that is my little overview on the purchase driver scorecard, marketing funnel, and the customer journey, which I think link in very nicely. What I do want to do is pull up an example of the PDSE tool. Okay, bear with me for a moment as I make it a little larger. So a PDSE tool, as we can see here, has, as we set it up, you should think about inputs and outputs. And so this will be sort of the initial introduction to modeling. And you'll get more in terms of modeling, especially when you take accounting and finance. And what we try to think about is, first and foremost, is what are your input variables? So what I've identified are the PDSE variables, as we talked about, awareness, familiarity, and these are conversion rates, which are conversion rates from the previous step. So these will be very critical. Okay, and then what I've input as input points as well in terms of variables is income statement. So relative to revenue and gross profit, the units per customer, price per unit, discount per unit, which you need to keep in mind because that happens, and then the cost per unit, which is basically variable costs. So if you look at the equation of price per unit times discount, so that will be what you call the net price minus the net cost per unit. Those two variables will give you what we call the net profit per unit. And then you go multiplying number of units versus net profit per unit, so that is there, and that'll give you your gross margin. Your net revenues would be your price per unit times what we call 1 minus the discount per unit. Okay, so if you have a price of $5 and you have a 10% discount per unit, then what will happen is that is 10%. That means that your net price is $4.50 per unit. So that will give you then an output based on the number of units you've generated, based on the number of customers and the customer purchases per unit. and that price. So we go back to when we talked about goal setting, the drivers to revenue. And then we have the back end here is the cost per unit will give you basically cost of goods sold, which you can subtract out, which will give you then your gross profit. Then you look at your marketing programs, sales programs, and GSA, and those get subtracted out, which can give you then your net profit. So here are some outputs. So you have inputs and you have outputs. So then you structure your outputs, and when you structure your outputs, you start with market potential. But then what you do is you build your formula based on your input variables, as we have here, versus potential. And then this is basically the, again, input variable times the previous round awareness, and so on and so forth. I also like to know in terms of my percent conversion prior step, which is basically pulling straight from the input variable. But then you have percent of each step from potential, which is basically the ratio of the net forecast of customers to the total market potential. And then you come up with your primary purchase here in terms of number of customers, look at satisfaction numbers, and then conversion in terms of repeat customers. And the two together give you your total customers. And you have your funnel efficiency factor, which is the ratio of your purchase to your market potential. So now we come to the income statement. Hopefully you're following here. So we talked about number of customers, which has been linked back to your total customers here. And then you say, well, we have units per customer, right? We have that as an input variable. That'll give us our total units, because total units times customers will give us. So unit per customer that we have over here times number of customers will give you total units. And based on the discounting and the price per unit, so price per unit times the discount will give you then your net price. So if we look at our net price, which in this case is going to be $4.50 because we had a 10% discount, then we can calculate our gross sales or revenues. And then you have what we call cost of goods. So one of the things as a tip as you do set up your models is the negative signs as we look at for costs. And so when you do that, then you can just sum and add. It's there. So we have our cost of goods sold, which is basically number of units times the cost per unit, which translates over here in terms of your cost of goods sold. And the subtraction of this COGS from sales gives you your gross profit. And then you add what we call SG&A costs, which are marketing, sales, general administration. In this scenario, we are playing with marketing programs, which we can vary. So be aware, because I'm going to put a few scenarios together and I'm going to ask you to model it and then give me an outcome. If you've done your job properly, the net is going to be that the economic outcome, okay, will come from how this table or this output portion is tied back from income statement to the purchase driver scorecard, which ties back to these input variables. Okay, so this is a great way of learning how to do some modeling. And then if you're ambitious enough, I'll throw this out as well, a 2x2 table. So you look at this table, and what do you see? You see numbers in here. So you say, well, how did I create these numbers? So say you're a marketing manager, as Raj was, and you're looking and you're asking the question, well, what if I vary things like pricing. I vary things like awareness. And you can do that. So we create scenarios. So remember our price was $5 here. We can vary it down because of discounting pressure. We can bring it up, which can increase profitability. And so what you try to do is look at what the impact is relative to these things that we have relative to price and awareness. We were at 55%, okay, which is a very key parameter as well. So then how do you build this? So first and foremost is, you see this? This is 885. That is your active cell. That is your net profit. So you're going to have to link this cell to this cell. We're not done yet. We've built our scenarios. So we have that cell linked and these parameters that we select based on what we're increasing in our price from $1 to $10 or increasing our awareness vis-a-vis a marketing program. We're here in this tab called data. And what we'll do is go to what if analysis. And we'll come to data table. And in that data table, what you'll be able to do is your row input. So what is the row input? That is the price. So then you select your price that you've used for this model from your inputs. Okay, which is price per unit. Okay, not discount, but price per unit. So that will go here. And then you look at your column input, which is awareness, which is going to be awareness, which is percentage of potential audience, which is here. Right? When you add those variables into the what if analysis for the 2x2 data table, it'll kick out this table. And what's great is now you can look at the influence of playing with two of these variables as a marketing individual. Say, well, if we want to improve sales, what is the better investment? Is the better investment discounting, or is the better investment putting money into a marketing campaign? Okay, and you can even look at varying your marketing campaign dollars by over here. $500,000, what, $750,000. Say my assumption $750,000 will give me an increased awareness of 80%, etc. So you can play with this model. And that's the beauty of the purchase driver scorecard. So anyway, on Wednesday, I'm going to let you create your own purchase driver scorecard. I've given you the basis from a foundational of the customer journey and marketing funnel, and then given a case example of the Dow case example using the purchase driver scorecard, and then here we have a actual model. And I'm going to let you play with it, work up what you have, and learn by doing, create your PDSC. We'll give you some feedback to see if you've properly been able to pull those pieces together. So thank you this evening for your attention. I look forward to seeing you in class on Wednesday. If you have questions on this, feel free to email me.